Hi, welcome to Fitnessmanswers. I'm your Monday Fitnessmanswers guy, Kent, and this week's episode has to do with what emotions are you struggling with and how do they affect your weight loss. So often people look at guys in general as stoic individuals. They don't let their emotions bother them, or they push their emotions way down, and they never let others see their emotions. And this week we're dedicating it to allowing others to see what emotions are bubbling underneath our surfaces and how do we deal with them at large. Because I know I've been asked more and more on, I feel depressed, I feel self-pity, I feel envy of your weight loss, I feel no good, I don't feel worthy of losing weight, those sorts of things. And they're asking me, how do I deal with it? How do I deal with those emotions that I had when I was losing weight? Well, the emotion I decided to pick on is anxiety. Partly because I had a race last weekend. I ran the Des Moines Half Marathon, and anytime I have one of those big events in my life, or those tests to do, or those huge races that I've trained a long time for, one of the things leading up to it is a lot of anxious feelings, a lot of those anxiety feelings. My wife just commented when I told her what emotion I was doing was, yeah, you weren't very fun Saturday night. You were kind of irritable. So it was probably appropriate that I picked anxiety to do. And what are the emotional symptoms of anxiety? And mind you, there are different. I've been reading, and there's like 100 different symptoms of anxiety or anxious behavior. And I'm only going to hit upon a few, but I'll put links over there to a number of the other ones that you might be able to see, both emotionally and physically, that you might be seeing in partnering yourself and others. And we want to be aware that there's also a bell curve on anxious behavior. You know, it's normal to be anxious about some things, to be anxious about a stressful behavior or a big test coming up or a big presentation that might be due. However, where it becomes a little abnormal is when it becomes dominating your life, when it becomes a ever-present thing. So there is never an off moment for your anxious behavior. And that's what they call general anxiety disorder. And there are obviously medications for that, like Xanax and things like that. Or there are, just like if that's an ever-present piece of your life, there's also attacks. Anxiety attacks in which you almost feel like almost heart attack situations, in which you difficulty breathing, pain in the chest as your body, your parasympathetic system just crunches your inside down and put that stress, not necessarily environmental stress, but just emotional stress on your internal organs. So that said, what are some of the symptoms of anxious behavior that I've seen personally? Well, like I already talked off, there's obviously the irritability. There's trouble concentrating. If you just don't feel like you can focus on anything because you know there's this thing, that monkey hanging over your head that you just can't get through. There's restlessness. You keep just wanting to drive to either one, get yourself away from the anxiety-producing event, i.e. the race, the test, whatever, and doing anything other than that, or it's keep focusing, keep driving towards that goal, doing that last little thing, i.e. if you're training for a marathon, training all the way up to the final day because you just don't feel like you've trained well enough, and you're so stressed over the event that you're just trying to pound in that last few workout sessions. Feeling as though if you're almost going crazy, i.e. that stress just running around in your head, that hamster running on that wheel, and that never letting you just have that relaxing moment of, it's over, it's done, I don't have to think about it anymore. And finally, depression or mood swings. Obviously, as you feel that stress continually building up, that can obviously have a demotivating side effect in which you just feel overwhelmed by it, that you can't get out from under it, and it's just overwhelming you. Obviously, you can see some of the euphoria that might come in, that periods of gladness or happiness, but then obviously the crashing down of the overwhelmingness of whatever the task might be. You can obviously see where there might be a different pieces along the bell curve in which, or graduations of how impacting or the levels of inability that might lead into one's life on some of these things. I might have the irritability that I might not find a joke funny that I normally might, but some irritability might be to the point of literally lashing out at people. So obviously there's different graduations along that scale, and the point is to recognize what behavior you might be seeing and perhaps account it or attribute it to its real source. And there's also some physical things that might happen during this period of time. Some physical symptoms. Headaches. As I told you, you might feel that stress headache coming on. Stomach aches, dizziness, or diarrhea, i.e. if your head's feeling all this pain, or your parasympathetic system is introducing all these hormones, these stress hormones into your body, it's also going to be affecting your organs just as much. So your normal digestion system might not be working as well. Muscle tightness or tension. Obviously, that's a very easy one to see. And you're feeling all this stress in you, and your muscles just tighten up, and the feeling relaxing. I know after I ran my marathon, I couldn't relax to save my life because I was just so uptight about making sure that I hit each pace goal. Tiredness or lethargy. Obviously, speaking might be a period of anxiety behavior too. So obviously you can see where it might be really impactful, all this anxious. And like I said, I don't want to over-exaggerate the anxiety feelings I have or take away from what other people see. Obviously, some people have such anxious behavior that they aren't able to self-correct themselves, or that they're actually going to need medication to get over this. Obviously, for myself, how I get through these anxious times is, one, make sure I'm as trained as I can be. Obviously, if I'm taking a test, I'm going to make sure I've studied as hard as I could for that test and make sure that I'm well prepared for whatever the task is that I'm doing. Preparation is a great antidote to a lot of the anxious behaviors, because if you're prepared, if you feel you're ready to do it, chances are you're not going to have quite the level of anxiety that you might have normally had. Another one, simply having diversionary activities in the months or days leading up to the event. Obviously, something just to get your mind off the task at hand, something to divert your mental focus from whatever it might be to something else. Obviously, you have to take that into effect with the whole preparations aspect, but sometimes having that diversionary activity really certainly helps to me. And finally, making plans. Obviously, if you've made the plans, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this, and I got to do this. And if I can accomplish all those things, I know that I'm going to be good to go. If you can break it down into smaller chunks and making sure that you don't have to eat the whole elephant in one bite, eating it just a bite at a time, obviously that takes a lot of the anxious behavior or the impossibility of the event away from you. If you're training for a marathon, you don't have to plan for that 20-mile run day one. What you have to plan for is how you're going to get this week's training out of the way. How are you going to accomplish this base building activity? It's not trying to see the magnitude that I'm going to have to run 500 to 700 miles to train for this marathon. No, I just simply have to run today's 4-mile race or this 7-mile tempo run. It's about breaking it into smaller, more manageable chunks. Well, I hope this helps. And obviously, if anxiety is hitting you, if you're feeling stressed about some situation, feel free to put it in the comment section below. I'd like to know that I'm not the only one being overwhelmed by large events or stressful situations in one life. And I'm curious to see what the other Fitnessmanswers guys' emotions that they're dealing with are. So, I hope this reaches everyone with good health and good day.